Tenant in Oregon tried to buy her landlord's house, but her landlord didn't want to sell it to her. So she decided not to pay the rent. So her landlord evicted her. But she, after getting evicted, came back with a group of protesters and decided to start squatting in the house. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over this crazy story out of Oregon, okay? And, obviously, Oregon is known to be a very, very tenant friendly place, a place where it is difficult for landlords to remove tenants. So the fact that this lady actually was legally evicted by this landlord, it tells you that, man, she was definitely in the wrong. But unfortunately, after her eviction, she decided, hey, I'm going to break into this house and stay up in here, and I'm gonna have a big old group of protesters, and what they're doing to me is wrong, and I'm like, hey, you don't own this place, and you need to get the heck out of there, because there's a lawful court order saying that you have been evicted. You're just trespassing at this point. Okay, you have no right to be in there whatsoever. But I don't know why the police don't remove her immediately. It's really kind of a crazy story. And as I go through it, you're going to see that, hey, this tenant is out of their mind. Okay, I mean, she doesn't know jack. Okay, she is using this landlord to, trying to, manipulate people's heartstrings, and she's got no right to the property whatsoever. It's a insane story. Obviously, out of a place like Oregon, you expect to read insane stories. So it's just crazy. All right. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. What would you do if you had a tenant who you lawfully evicted and decided to break back up in the property and try to stay there? I mean, I would think the police would treat it as trespassing immediately, because it's not like she has a lease. We know that she's been evicted. We know that she's been forcefully removed. I mean, it's obvious for this sort of tenant, you would have to go in there, board up all the windows, change the locks immediately, get all the power, water, everything turned off immediately, have somebody staying up in the house to make sure that these crazies and these whack jobs don't try to break back in there, okay? Because this is an insane situation that happened here, and unfortunately the landlord's an out-of-state landlord, so there wasn't much that they could do. So anyway, let's get into the article. This article is coming from KEZI.com, and it says, single mother returns to Eugene home after being evicted. Yeah, and she, like I said, she's just a nut job. I don't know what she's thinking, but it's very unlikely that she is going to be able to stay in this property. I mean, they haven't forcefully removed her a second time yet, but man, they're going to have to. Anyway, let's get into it. Eugene, Oregon. After being evicted early in July, a Eugene woman is now back in the home on Almaden Street after she was evicted last Wednesday. On July 5th, officers from the Eugene Police Department and the Lane County Sheriff's Office showed up outside Candace King's house to evict her. Law enforcement was met with protesters who had been camping outside King's residence since June 26th. King had been living in the house on Almaden Street on Almaden for 7 years and had been trying to buy it for the last 4 years. When the property owner, Sharon Prager, would not sell the home, King decided to stop paying rent. So basically, this tenant was trying to force this landlord to sell her the home. Landlord did not want to sell the house. I'm not selling my house just because the tenant wants to buy it. I don't give a darn what they want. Okay, it's mine. And this landlord had every right to say no. So what is the tenant's response to that? Well, I'm just going to stop paying rent. Well, yeah, guess what? You're going to get evicted for that, because this is a complete joke. You don't have any right to this place. I'm not selling it to you, and if you're not paying me, you're going to get evicted. And that's exactly what this landlord did. King stopped paying rent in March of 2023 and was sent a 10-day notice of non-payment in April by Charlie Hansen, a property manager with R&R Properties. On May 6th, King sent Hansen an email stating she would not pay rent on the three-bedroom home. Hansen filed King's eviction that same day. According to Hansen, King's rent was $1,310 per month. So she stopped paying rent in March, right? They sent the 10-day notice out in March, and they still gave her 2 months. Okay, I don't know if that's an Oregon law where you have to wait 60 days before you can actually file the rent. But when she said she's not going to pay, guess what? He went and filed it. Okay, so what were you expecting? Did you expect all of a sudden the landlord to be like, "Oh well, I don't have any rent, so I guess I'll sell the property to you now"? No, are you kidding? So it sounds like they have a good property manager here who knows the state and local laws and followed all the rules, because guess what? Everything went through, and this lady actually got ordered evicted by the housing court. You have to pay rent if you're in a rental home. The owner does not have to sell the property. She doesn't want to sell the property, and she was a renter, said Hanson. You have to pay rent to stay in the home. It doesn't make sense. We just want the property back. King and R&R Properties went to an eviction trial following a hearing with R&R Properties in late May. The property management company won the case on June 21st, allowing them to legally evict King. Hanson said they will soon start a GoFundMe to raise $10,000 to cover the cost of legal fees and lost rent from the proceedings. So yeah, this landlord trying to get rid of this tenant, right? Not only did they have this, 3 months of lost rent, well, since March. So March, April, May, June, that's 4 months. July, because the lady's still in there, right? So we're talking about 5 months of lost rent. Then we're talking about how much you have to pay in terms of legal fees if you're paying a lawyer to represent you in the court. This stuff is not cheap. Not to mention any damages that this horrible tenant did to the property. I don't think that a security deposit is going to cover. She'll probably tear the place apart. That is the worst part about all this, okay? The longer she's in that place, the more likely this place is going to get ripped apart. Things might get stolen, everything, holes punched in the wall. And then she might pour cement down the pipes. Who knows what's going to happen? We need to get her out of there. That is the truth. On the day of King's eviction, law enforcement officers who went to enforce the eviction were met with community members protesting outside the house. According to Hanson, she and police officers were yelled at by protesters. She claimed officers ignored the protesters and did not act violently towards them. She said there have also been protests outside R&R's office building and at Prager's house in California. Since King was evicted, she has gotten back into the home and continues to live there, surrounded by supporters camping outside her door. So the police forcefully removed her, and then she broke back in. Trespassing, just like that, okay? Breaking and entering, just like that, okay? Burglary, whatever charge is possible, get this lady up out of that house. The police have every right to remove her now because she has already been lawfully evicted. And if she went back in there after that, then she is nothing but a trespasser, okay? And it doesn't matter all these protesters. What are these people protesting? That's the one thing I don't understand, and they don't really cover in this article is why are these people fighting for this lady who is not paying rent? Okay? She doesn't have any right to this house. It's not like she was born in the house. She only lived there for 7 years. Okay? 7 years is not a lifetime. It's, you have to go. You have to pay the rent. The landlord has no, desire to sell you the property. It's time for you to go. Man, I can't stand entitled tenants like this. They're just complete garbage. And this lady in particular is just a piece of trash. However, for King supporters, oh, no, I'm sorry. Legally, we can have access. Legally, it's our property. She's an evicted tenant, said Hanson. We are not able to access it because she's got so many people there camping with her. However, for King supporters, this has been a chance for the community to come together. According to King's longtime neighbor, Erin Grady, the experience has been really beautiful. She said they're not only protesting King's eviction, but also the larger issues with Eugene's housing crisis. Everybody involved with this project and many supporters of this project really see the tragedy of the housing crisis we are facing and how it's affecting renters, said Grady, how it's affecting people getting evicted, how the unhoused community is growing. What? That has nothing to do. You know what? That's an idiotic argument. They're talking, oh, well, you know what? The unhoused community, she chose to stop paying the rent. That's the only reason she was evicted. She chose to stop paying the rent because the landlord would not sell her the property, and now she got evicted because of that. If you paid the rent, you wouldn't get evicted. There's no mention here of you being unable to pay the rent. There's what? There, this is an idiotic argument. And now you're painting this landlord as the bad guy when the only thing the landlord wants is to be able to control their property as they see fit, not be forced to sell it to somebody, not be forced to house people for free. Goodness, these people, they get what they deserve, okay? When landlords don't want to invest there anymore, when they don't want to rent their properties out, when developers don't want to build there anymore, they're going to be like, well, where's all the affordable housing? Well, your stupid socialist, communist programs that you put in place trying to force, landlords to do what you want. Well, that's the reason why they all left. They decided, hey, we're not investing here anymore. We're going to go somewhere where we're treated right.